Cheers! Today we are making the perfect glass. Whether you're looking for a special gift or wanting to elevate the glasses in your own home, these are just such a wonderful project to make. I'm going to show you two separate methods, one with paint and the other with laser engraving paper. I'll show you how to set up your file, laser engrave it with all the tips and tricks along the way, and then I'm going to show you the results up close so you can decide which method is for you. So let's make these glasses together. To prepare our glasses for engraving, I'm going to clean them. I'm actually using this isopropyl alcohol. If you don't have this type of alcohol, any sort of window cleaner with an alcohol base will be fine, just to get rid of any sort of grease or even, just the oil from your fingertips, so that the engrave is really nice and clear. So I'm just giving both of those glasses a quick wipe over. And then we're ready to prepare each glass with the different engraving method I'm going to be using today. I'm going to be comparing two different types of engrave today. So the first is going to be using this laser engraving paper, which is available from Creality. It's like a fine plastic film on a sort of paper backing. So we're going to be doing that glass in a moment. Right now I'm going to spray this second glass with the Rust-Oleum black spray paint that I've got here. So let's go outside and do that one first. I'm going to be spraying a light spray just where we're going to be doing the engraving. So you don't need to do the entire glass, but just a fine mist where you are going to see that engrave come through. So now that I've done that, we're going to wait for this to dry and then start our engrave. Whilst I'm waiting for my glass to dry with the spray paint, I've just set up my rotary so that my glass will fit on nicely. So basically this rotary is quite adaptable. These little arms will unscrew using the two little screws that are in each arm there, and you can basically have them facing outwards. At the moment I've got the sort of larger arm facing inwards, and there's also long metal prong type of pieces that you can put on depending on what shape your piece is. So whether you're doing long stemware or you're doing, like a chunky low tumbler, there's so many variations that this Rotary Pro can do. So I've set that up nicely and I'm just waiting for my glass to dry. So I'm going to set up my Rotary on the Falcon Pro. Within the Lightburn software, I have actually put in my parameters and pressed enable rotary, but I'll show you that in a second. But I am going to turn on my laser now, so you can hear the beep of initializing, and that laser head has moved to the left and my rotary is spinning. So the laser is aware that the rotary is connected, but that is why I have the rotary on the outside, is just so that that laser head has no chance of banging into the rotary and doing any damage. I'm ready now to put my rotary on the inside of the machine. Now it is important to make sure that as you pop your rotary in the machine that you do have it lined up to either the front of the machine or the gantry sort of beam there, because you do want your engrave to be straight. So I will double check that, but just as a reminder to make sure that that is correct. You can use either the box that it came in or, a piece of timber or something that you have laying around, just to make sure that the left and the right are lined up. I'm now in Lightburn. So as you can see here, I've enabled rotary on my toggle here. So if you've set up your rotary previously, you'll have that enable rotary toggle on there. Then I'm going to move up to the toolbar at the top, select laser tools, and I'm going to go to rotary setup. On the rotary setup, it will have chuck, enable rotary, y-axis, 40 millimeters per rotation. Now you do need to enter either the object diameter or the circumference for your item. You will only need to measure one of these. So I'm actually using my digital calipers and I'm coming in and I'm actually going to measure where that design is about halfway, because there's not a huge amount of variance in that. So I have 48.5, which I've entered in there as the object diameter. Once you enter that in and press enter, it will actually work out the circumference for you. So I'll go back in because it automatically then calculates the circumference and you can press OK. So you only need to do that once every time you have a different shaped item, as that information will stay in there from last time. So please remember, if you are going from, say, a tumbler or a, different object to a wine glass or a champagne glass, you will need to adjust that diameter or circumference for your new shape. Otherwise, you'll see distortion in your image. I'm now going to show you how I open up my file. So I'm going to go to recent projects and open up this butterfly. Now, as you can see, it's rather large. It's zoomed in on the screen. So it's actually 21.5 centimeters big at the moment. So way too big. So I've got the ratio locked on. So I'm going to bring that down to about, I'll try 45. It's probably still a little high. So we might try 40. So now my image height is 4.5 centimeters and my width is 4 centimeters wide. Now, because I am setting my rotary on a west-east direction, I'm actually going to then rotate my file to match that. So I'm going to come up here and say arrange, rotate 90 degrees. There I have my image there ready to go. So any file you buy or you open is usually going to be in the upright format, or so sort of top to bottom, and you will need to rotate to reflect the direction of your rotary. So my file is now the correct size. Looking at the cuts and layers tab, I have my file selected. Now it doesn't matter what color you select along the bottom here, you can use any one you like. I'm going to change it to blue, for example, and I'm going to put in our parameters for this engrave. Now I'm using the speed of 1500 and the power of 40%. And I'm doing this engrave on the 22 watt or the precise mode on the Creality Falcon Pro. Now, when you are looking at this, there is some additional information down here in terms of line interval, or you can double click this layer and that gives you a little bit more information. As mentioned, I have my speed at 1500, my power at 40%. You can see, as I mentioned, the laser head will be moving back and forth to do this engrave. Now, I have tested many different parameters here, and I suggest having my overscan at 5%. What that means is that for every movement left and right that the laser head does, it allows the laser head to then travel an additional 5% to keep that speed up or gain that speed as it goes to a new line. So if it's going at a certain speed and then it drops down and goes to do the next one, it has that 5% to get up to that 1500 speed. Now the reason I do that is because I feel it gets a nicer, cleaner line on the edge of the engrave. So I will show you here. I'd like to put my line interval, I like to really lower that down to 0.06, which brings the line per inch up as well, so that you get a nice solid engrave. So as I mentioned, with the overscan, you're going to get a nice sharp line where those edges are, particularly the little antenna on the butterfly. It'll be a nice neat line. Because this is an engrave, I'm going to turn the air off for this. So I have output on, I have show on, I have my parameters for the fill with the power and the speed, I have my line interval set, I have the air off. Now I'm going to move to the laser tab. Within the laser tab, I'm actually going to have the start from set as current position. That means where the laser head is, that green dot becomes the starting point of that file. So it will start to move left and right and fill that in from that starting point. So you can change that job origin. So if you wanted to, you could select, for example, the center line, and that way you could center your design. It's all about where you're measuring from. So I'm going to set it back to that bottom left there because I feel like it's a great spot for me to have seen that design, and I've measured it from there. You can move that to anywhere within that workspace. You can move it up to the top right, for example, but job origin I usually leave at the bottom left and saying there start from current position means where you put your laser head, that is where your design will start. So keep that in mind as you're moving forwards, but we're ready now to frame our design and then also press start. As you can see, we're back inside the laser now, and I have my Rotary Pro set up. I have the base ready to clip on once I've got my dried painted glass onto the rotary. So I think I'm going to have to lean across and probably will end up blocking this terribly, but I'm basically going to be adjusting this wheel until those little arms inside grab and hold that glass nicely. Now nicely have that glass on there, and as you can see when I rotate there's not a huge amount of movement in it, but I would like to use the end support just to hold that glass and give it that little extra support as it's rotating because it is fine glass. My base is now on the rotary, and as you can see when I spin it there is little to no movement in this area here, which is where I'm going to be doing the engrave. So that's perfect because it means that my focus alignment will be ideal. It's time now to bring my laser head forwards. And I'm going to be using my focusing tool. The stepped tool has engraving at the top, so it really doesn't matter what you are engraving. You're going to be using this top step for this glass. Now, because it is glass, you don't want to scratch the surface, so just be gentle when you are doing this. But I'm just going to loosen the two screws on the right hand side. Might be difficult to see because my hands are in the way, but I'm going to drop the laser head onto that focusing tool, and I'll show you there so you can see the tool is there. I'm just going to remove that focusing tool, and that is where my laser is for the engrave in terms of the actual focus. Now for alignment, it is hard to see on black, but I will do a framing. Now because I have my overscan as 5%, I do need to clear this arm here, because if it was to move forwards and hit that, it would make an awful sound and scare me. So what I'm doing is I'm basically working out where on this glass I would like my butterfly to be, given the measurements of the actual butterfly itself, and also allow the laser head enough room to move back and forth without any obstruction. And you won't be able to see, but on the top of my laser head I have the 60-watt laser head, so I'm moving it back to the precise mode, which is the 22-watt power mode. So that is what my settings are for. So if you're using the 22-watt Creality Falcon, you can probably use these same parameters on your glass. Also have it set to where I would like the design to start. I have my glass all nicely set up. The only thing I'm going to do is rotate it to make sure that it is on the black paint, and that as it moves back and forth it will remain in that painted section. The same applies for when you're using the laser engraving paper. You just want your design to fall onto that masked piece of glass. I'm now ready to press frame. I'm really happy with where my design is falling upon my glass, so I'm ready to hit start. Now please remember you do need to wear your safety glasses because I do have the door open during this, so I'm going to leave it open so I can film it and you can see nice and easily. So away we go. As you can see, the laser has stopped engraving. It will stop in the same position from which it started. So if you're doing a bunch of glasses and you'd like them to be perfectly aligned, it's quite simple. I'm going to take the base section off of my rotary and remove the glass gently, and that way my next glass will be perfectly aligned to the first. And there we have, the first design is complete. For the next glass, I'm using the laser engraving paper. Now, I've already cut out a piece and I'm going to show you how to apply that. So I'm going to put it in a bowl of water, and you can see it instantly curls up. So I'm just going to keep rotating that a little bit until it's nice and wet and the first top layer starts to come off. Okay, I can see it's starting to wrinkle there, so I'm going to now peel it off the backing and place it on the glass where the engrave will be. Now it's kind of like a fine, sort of like almost cling wrap feel. So I'm going to pop it on the glass, and basically what I'm going to try and do is smooth it out as I apply it so that there's not any wrinkles in where the design is going to be. Okay, so I've got a piece of paper towel here, and I'm just going to dry that top layer and push those air bubbles out. The beauty of having it on a glass is that you can actually turn it over and see from behind if there's any air bubbles. So you just want it to be as flat as it can be in that area where your design is going to be engraved on the glass. Perfect. Now with the laser engraving paper, you can work quite quickly because you don't need to wait for this to dry. As long as that top bit is patted dry with some paper towel as we've done, you're ready to put it straight on the laser engraver. I'm back to the laser now, and I have my cup on there with the laser engraving paper. Now I will be using the same parameters for this engrave. I'm going to do a frame first, just so that I can determine that the engrave is going to still be as I'm expecting it to be. And I have mirrored the design just so that they sort of look like a matching pair. So away we go. I do get a cut might be out of bounds, continue anyway message on my screen. I actually press yes. The reason for that is it's allowing for that overscan. So it's not actually sort of out of bounds, but it is saying that that laser head will move back and forth outside of the bounds of which it is shown on the screen. So that is why I've kept in mind to keep the left part of the rotary out of the way. So I'm going to hit continue anyway, yes, and away we go. I've now completed engraving both the glasses. So I've got the spray paint version on the left, and I've got the laser engraving paper here on the right. I'm going to take them both now and give them a good clean up and a wash so I can get that black sort of masking off of both of them, and I'll come back and we can share the results. Here I have my two glasses. The first on the left is the one done with the paint, and the one on the right is done with the laser engraving paper. Now I'll give you an opportunity to see them up really close because it's good to get sort of a gauge of how they look. Although the one on the left looks more pronounced in color, as I bring it up, you'll see it actually has sort of a distortion of almost like a brownie shade to it, whereas the other is sort of more true to an etch. It's sort of almost silver-like rather than a brownie shade to it. So if I'm looking at this first one, you can see along the edges, it's not an overly sharp finish. It did fill in all of the engrave in terms of the lines per inch, and I'll let the sun really shine on those edges there so you can see what I mean. It certainly did a great job. I don't know that it's as refined as the other one in terms of like when I run my hand across it. If you can hear that, it's slightly rough. The second one is with the laser engraving paper, and as you can see, it has got a full finish on those edges. So I'll let that sunshine again just go over that edging, and you can see it's quite smooth and consistent, and when I run my finger over it, it's a smoother finish. I've just popped rolled up leather inside just so that you can really see the engrave. So I'll do a few different comparisons so that you can see it. But when you're comparing the edge of those wings there, you can certainly see a quality difference. I'll bring it in nice and close. You might be able to see there what I mean by the left is a more rough finish than it is on the right. It's a little bit smoother. What do you think? Which one do you prefer? I thought for another test I'd pop it on this sort of fleshy background, so again you can see the difference with a different background on it. You can see on the left it sort of does have a grey brown finish to it, whereas the one on the right certainly has just more a silver kind of finish to it. And it just does look that little bit more refined in terms of finish. My last comparison, I'm popping it against a white background just so that again you can see the difference in the finish. As I said, I think this one, which is done with the spray, just has a slightly more brown effect on the Engrave, whereas the one on the right is slightly more silver. And as you look at it closely, it almost looks on the right with the engraving paper like it almost has a tiny bit of sparkle to the finish, and it certainly has a more refined edge on those edges of the butterfly's wings there. Such a great project to do. I hope you've enjoyed this. What a beautiful gift to give a couple. This tutorial really shows you what you can do to create a really personalized gift for someone. It turns sort of inexpensive glasses into something quite special. Today's tutorial really was a lot of fun to make these champagne glasses. So, you know, whether you're making these as a gift for your special birthday, engagement, wedding, anniversary, or even everyday tumblers, it's such a fun project. And, you know, the options are endless. You can personalize with names, dates, special, you know, meaningful items for your loved ones. So in under 15 minutes, I was able to engrave 2 matching champagne glasses, regardless of which method you're using. So thanks for watching today. My name's Heidi. I'm the Crafty Socialite on social media if you'd like to follow me. And thank you to Falcon for sponsoring today's tutorial. Until next time, I'll see you then.